A serious trade conflict is erupting between the United States and Canada, two nations whose economies have long been deeply intertwined. For decades, the border between them has symbolized not just a line on a map, but a bridge of commerce, culture, and trust. Now, that foundation of partnership is under threat, as tensions rise and old alliances are tested in unexpected ways. In March 2025, President Donald Trump announced a sweeping 25% tariff on Canadian goods, a move that stunned both American and Canadian officials. The announcement came with little warning, sending shockwaves through diplomatic circles and global markets alike. The impact was immediate and severe. Canadian businesses, already facing economic headwinds, were suddenly confronted with a new and daunting challenge. Investors watched nervously as the Toronto Stock Exchange tumbled, and business owners scrambled to assess the fallout. For Alaska, the stakes are especially high. The state's unique geography means it is more dependent on its Canadian neighbor than any other part of the U.S. Alaska relies on the Alaska Highway, a vital land route that snakes through Canada, for the delivery of food, fuel, and other essential supplies. Every truck that crosses the border carries the lifeblood of Alaskan communities. This highway, once a symbol of wartime cooperation and post-war friendship, has connected the two countries for generations, but now it has become the center of a tense geopolitical standoff, its future uncertain as both sides dig in. Canada, feeling cornered by the sudden imposition of U.S. tariffs, is searching for ways to push back and protect its own interests. One option on the table: using its control over the Alaska Highway as leverage, potentially restricting or slowing the flow of goods to Alaska. The free flow of goods to Alaska is suddenly in jeopardy, raising fears of shortages and economic hardship in the state. With winter approaching, the threat of empty shelves and soaring prices looms large for Alaskan families who depend on regular shipments to get through the harsh season. The highway's importance is asymmetrical. While it is a lifeline for Alaska, it gives Canada significant bargaining power in this dispute. Canadian officials are weighing their options, aware that any move could have far-reaching consequences for both countries. Many Canadian leaders see the tariffs as a form of economic aggression, sparking protests and heated debates in Parliament. The government is determined to respond, vowing to defend Canadian jobs and industries, even if it means escalating the conflict. For the U.S., the conflict is framed as part of President Trump's America First agenda, with supporters arguing that tough measures are needed to protect American workers. The result is a dangerous standoff, with both sides refusing to back down and the risk of escalation growing by the day. In the middle of it all, Alaska's communities are left anxious and uncertain, caught between two powerful neighbors. What was once a dependable trade route is now a bargaining chip in a high-stakes dispute, its future hanging in the balance. As winter draws near and negotiations stall, the future of cross-border cooperation and the well-being of thousands of Alaskans hangs in the balance. In response to Trump's tariffs, British Columbia Premier David Eby announced the Economic Stabilization Tariff Response Act. This law gives BC the power to impose steep tolls on American trucks using the Alaska Highway. The message: if the U.S. enacts tariffs, Canada will hit back where it hurts. The tolls target time-sensitive goods, fresh produce and vital equipment for Alaska's industries. These costs would be passed directly to Alaskan consumers and businesses. The threat is part of a coordinated Canadian strategy, with provinces and Ottawa united against U.S. tariffs. The Alaska Highway, once a lifeline, is now a tool of economic statecraft. Canada is signaling it will defend its interests with every lever available. The U.S. quickly countered Canada's toll threat with its own economic weapon, signaling that it would not back down easily in this escalating dispute. The American response was swift and calculated, targeting a sector that was both lucrative and vulnerable. That weapon was the cruise ship industry, a lifeline for many communities along the Pacific coast and a major source of revenue for both countries. Alaska Senator Dan Sullivan stepped into the spotlight, warning that if British Columbia imposed tolls, he would urge Congress to waive the Passenger Vessel Services Act, a law that requires foreign-flagged cruise ships to stop in Canada on their way to Alaska. If Congress agreed, cruise ships could sail directly from Seattle to Alaska, bypassing Canadian ports entirely. This move would devastate BC's tourism sector, which relies heavily on cruise ship stopovers. Cities like Vancouver and Victoria depend on the steady influx of millions of cruise passengers each year, These visitors fill hotels, dine in restaurants, and shop in local stores, fueling the local economy. Without this vital traffic, British Columbia could lose billions in revenue and see thousands of tourism jobs vanish almost overnight. The ripple effects would be felt in every corner of the province, from bustling cities to small port towns. The US made it clear that it, too, could inflict serious economic pain, turning the dispute into a tense strategic stalemate with both sides unwilling to yield. Now, both countries hold powerful economic threats over each other, each side waiting for the other to make the next move, knowing that any misstep could have far-reaching consequences. The standoff has become a high-stakes game of chicken, with neither side willing to blink first. The tension is palpable and the world is watching to see who will yield. Meanwhile, the livelihoods of thousands of Alaskans and British Columbians hang in the balance, their futures uncertain as the political drama unfolds. The next move could tip the scales toward resolution, or push both nations further into economic conflict, with real consequences for people on both sides of the border. For Alaskans, the threat of tolls is a direct hit to daily life. The Alaska Trucking Association warns that new tolls would spike transportation costs and disrupt supply chains. Fresh food, already expensive, could become scarce or unaffordable. Alaska's oil and gas industry, reliant on timely truck shipments, could face costly delays. The state's economy is built on the assumption of a reliable land link, now under threat. Businesses face uncertainty, and supply chains could unravel overnight. A political battle thousands of miles away could isolate Alaska like never before. The dispute has sparked strong and passionate reactions on both sides of the border, with emotions running high in communities that depend on cross-border ties. For many, this isn't just a political issue, it's personal, affecting families, businesses, and friendships that have spanned generations. BC Premier David Eby frames the tolls as a necessary defense of Canadian sovereignty, emphasizing the need to stand up for national interests. Deputy Premier Nikki Sharma echoes his resolve, vowing to fight for BC's economy and protect local jobs, while assuring residents that their voices are being heard in the legislature. Prime Minister Trudeau, meanwhile, calls Trump's tariffs very dumb and stresses the importance of finding a diplomatic solution. He highlights Canada's commitment to working with international partners and maintaining strong alliances, even in the face of economic pressure. Yukon Premier Ranj Pillai is quick to clarify that the measures aren't aimed at ordinary Alaskans, but are instead about defending Canada's interests and ensuring fair treatment for northern communities that rely on cross-border trade. On the other side, Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy urges restraint and calls for calm, hoping for a swift and peaceful resolution that avoids unnecessary harm to families and businesses on both sides of the border. Alaska Senator Dan Sullivan, however, takes a firmer stance, warning that if tolls are imposed, Alaska may be forced to bypass BC ports altogether, potentially shifting trade routes and impacting regional economies. The mix of defiance, concern, and hope among citizens on both sides highlights just how complex and deeply felt this conflict has become. People are anxious about the future, but many still hold out hope for compromise. National pride, economic realities, and personal relationships all collide at the border, creating a situation where every decision has far-reaching consequences for daily life and long-term prosperity. Both nations' leaders are under intense pressure to protect their people, safeguard their economies, and find a path forward that respects the unique ties between Canada and Alaska. The outcome of these negotiations will not only determine the immediate future of cross-border relations, but will also shape the way Canadians and Americans interact for years to come. The toll threat is just one part of Canada's broader response. Provinces across the country have joined Ottawa in a united front. Ontario targets U.S. electricity imports with a 25% surcharge, raising costs for American consumers. Yukon halts purchases of American alcohol and awards contracts to Canadian firms. BC orders provincial agencies to stop buying U.S. products, especially from Republican-led states. These actions, though varied in scale, send a clear message. Canada will not back down. The country's unity and resolve are on full display. The Trump administration faces a coordinated, multi-pronged counterattack. As of September 2025, the conflict remains at a tense impasse. BC's toll law is in place but not yet enacted. U.S. tariffs are suspended, not canceled. The Alaska Highway's future and Alaska's economy hangs in the balance. Diplomacy could restore the status quo, but escalation risks a supply chain crisis and economic pain on both sides. The most likely scenario is a prolonged standoff, with businesses facing constant uncertainty. Alaska's lifeline remains a bargaining chip in a larger political game. The world's longest undefended border is now a potential economic frontline. The decisions made in the coming weeks will determine whether cooperation or conflict defines the next chapter.